And we're joined by Ambassador Manjeev Singh Puri, former senior diplomat, and he's going to help us understand what's behind me, the U.S. Sanctioning Russian oil. Now, Ambassador Puri, can the U.S. block Rosneft and Lukoil, Russia's two largest oil companies, from the international financial system? Can such a decision be unilateral? So we can't hear you. Perhaps your mic, you're mute.
Sorry.
Yeah,
sorry,
go ahead. Go ahead.
So, Mark, you know, what you are asking is a question of whether it's valid in international law or not. But the fact is, laws are all unilaterally administered and done. And the US is the largest player in the world. They've sanctioned them. They will make it difficult to do dollar transactions through any route for these countries. The Europeans, who are playing a bit of footsie with the oil companies of Russia, will also find it difficult. Indeed, the British have already sanctioned these two companies. The Europeans are also following suit. So, you know, things are going to get tough for them. But what if the real question is, what does it mean for Russia and its pursuance of its war aims in Ukraine? That's something that we are in no position to judge. It's only the Russians who can judge, because till now they seem to think that they can just string along President Donald Trump and there's more to be gained. We'll just have to wait and watch.
But India and China, Ambassador Puri, are major oil importers. Will this, reshape the thinking, global alliances and things like that?
So, Mark, what should I say to you? I think I saw a tweet or something from Mr. Mukesh Ambani saying that we'll reduce the kind of imports that we are doing from Russian oil. Now, I don't want to get into the complicated game. I think India will continue to buy Russian oil as long as it's reasonable for us, because we need it for our domestic purposes. Remember, winter is coming and so on and so forth. But, there is geopolitics. Let's understand that right. And President Trump has gone about especially mentioning India. I'm not bothered about what they do to China. He's been mentioning India. And we also see that as we pursue a trade deal, etc., some degree of give is sometimes necessary. What would happen? What would be the impacts of that will all have to be assessed. Remember, yesterday when he announced these particular actions against these two big companies, oil prices spiked. So there is a direct cost that everybody bears as a result of that. But what does it mean in terms of that particular action, the Russia-Ukraine kind of thing? It really is a question of the Kremlin taking its view on how long it can string President Trump. Is President Trump's patience running thin? The answer is yes, it is. But is he really in a position to do anything truly serious, i.e. go back towards what the Europeans want? Or are his interests still in looking at Russia as a great business opportunity for himself, which is the starting point of the way he looks at things?
Ambassador Puri, now Russia calls the move extremely counterproductive. We know that Biden also had imposed sanctions. How is this different, we can ask. But, from the U.S. point of view, what level of communication would he need to sustain or persist with the Russians to bring the Russians to the negotiating table?
He's done literally, you can say, all he could. Invited President Putin to Alaska, gave him a red carpet treatment out there. There's a lot of talk about being willing to meet in Budapest or wherever else. He is interested. My understanding of all this is, on his side and on the American side, there's a great deal of interest. Can the Americans simply get the Ukrainians to fold up, and that means the Europeans to fold up? The answer is no. Will the Russians be satisfied with that? It will depend on the way they see things, and do they think that there is more to be strung along. Remember, as winter is approaching, several elements of Ukraine become relatively easy and problematic. You hit power stations, you hit electricity lines, fuel dumps, etc. Makes life much more difficult. And if President Trump keeps saying, yes, I will let the Europeans do what they can to support you, but I won't give you Tomahawk missiles, then things aren't so very easy for the Ukrainians. But let's also remember, they've been through it for 2 years. They know this is a battle to the last Ukrainians. But they are also girded and they want to go ahead with it. And the Europeans, for all their various things, they are sort of convinced that, it would be Russia unlimited if you didn't do anything to block them in Ukraine.
Well, Brent crude, you were mentioning the prices have shot up. Brent crude rose 4.8%. West Texas Intermediate jumped 5.2%. But both, are between $60 and $65 still a barrel. So what do you see? I mean, where is this going? And who is it going to benefit in the end? And who is it going to hurt?
Look, the prices are fairly low as compared to kind of things that we saw $90 a barrel, etc., a couple of years back. So things are good that way. And therefore, these spikes are only what you may call relative. Who's going to benefit by all this? Look, at the end of the day, much of this game is politics. The question of being able to squeeze things out, what would the Americans like? Ideally, they would like the Europeans to buy all their oil from either the Middle East or from the United States. They would like even India and China to sort of shift and do what they can, because that is in the interest of American oil companies, let me say friends of President Donald Trump. But that's not an easy call, and it's not going to happen so very easily. If that could have been assured, the Russians would have come and said, okay, let's sign a deal. So this is a game that's going on in relative power structures. The Chinese, of course, as you know, even in the trade talks, they've been quite clear and said, okay, tit, and then there is tat coming from our side. So let's see what happens on this, what will be done. But as I said, my own belief is it's the Russians, the old players in the diplomatic game, unlike Mr. Trump, who thinks it's a real estate deal. Those old players are at it, making their own evaluations. Both President Putin and Mr. Lavrov and others are old players in this game. They will keep making these assessments. I hope they don't slip up, because this is always a slippery slope.
A final question, Ambassador Puri. The Europeans seem to be happy. But Moscow, where is it going now? I mean, will it be going closer to Iran, North Korea? We saw that happening over the last 2 years.
But Mark, this is an old story, isn't it now? It happened right in the beginning. Iranians supplying drones to the Russians, the North Koreans supplying soldiers, all of that. But the real game behind them, of course, is the Chinese. And will this put them more into their lap, as you say? Well, my answer is it would, but is it really correct and worth it? Look, I have a slightly different view from many others on all of this. My view is that the Europeans, along with the Americans and others, are better off keeping Russia in a space which you can't say friendly and allied, no, but in a space in which there is a degree of doing business, doing things, basically to keep them out of being in the Chinese lap. Because that is the larger issue for the United States as the global hegemon to play the game versus China. And Russia is a major player. Why are you letting them shift on the other side? But, neocon theories in the United States have all been about, in a sense, dismantling Russia. Unlike the old Dayton stories which said, we respect you, you stay in your own areas, that's your area of influence. President Trump, in a sense, likes that kind of thing, although he sees it from a purely perspective of business. And he sees Russia, a big economy, lots of opportunities, his own old experiences of real estate in New York. The Russians were serious buyers out there. So it's a way of looking at it. I'm afraid the leaders matter.
We'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Manjeev Singh Puri, former ambassador of India. Thanks for being with us. Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressing booth-level party workers in Bihar under the Mera Booth Sabse Mazboot campaign reaffirmed the NDA's commitment